Welcome in, welcome in, welcome in. It's our Tuesday edition on the Hill with Pat Jenkins Sports Talk Radio, and we come to you each and every day here on KDSJ 479 from 1 to 2 p.m. Monday through Friday, and real excited about today's show as we're going to go and get on that bus. We said we'd do it. We talk SEC, so we're going to head on the bus and make a one stop. We're going to Athens and talk to UGA Sports, Jake Bruce. We're going to get the dog talk, see what Kirby and the guys, how they feel coming out of spring football, and then we're going to hop back on the bus and stay in the East, and we're heading down to Como, Columbia, South Carolina, to talk about Will Muschamp and the Gamecocks with Will Gunner, Spurs and Feathers. All that's coming up, but I want to bring in real quick co-host, my producer, Demigod, but as I always told y'all, he's the home guy on here. Demetrius, what's up, my man?
What's happening?
Everything good?
I can't complain at all. Beautiful day. Birds are chirping, dogs are barking. You already know what it is.
I will say, for those, if you do music, like to produce music, Demetrius is the guy you need to get in contact with. I mean, great production. He's got some things coming out. And I think, this generation, it's, so to speak, my word, it's lit. So be sure and tune in for what he has coming out in the music world as well. But if you want good music, be sure and reach out to him. You can come through on the hill, we can get it to him, all this information. But on the other things, Cheyenne O'Grady, we came in with audio real quick of a fifth-year senior to be, and a real key piece to, I think, Coach Chad Morris's offensive puzzle this year, don't you think, Demetrius? I mean, what is the outlook for Cheyenne? Because it started around that A&M game, and he just became a problem for the duration of the season for opposing defenses, especially linebackers.
I'm expecting O'Grady to have an amazing season. I think with the addition of Traylon Burks and possibly Knox, I think he's going to have one-on-one opportunities to really show his athleticism off this year. I think last year guys knew that he was going to be a focal point, especially later on in the year after that A&M game. And then I'm expecting the coaches to really use him as an offensive target. I really liked how they used that screen with him last year, but I just kind of felt like they got Manila with him as the years went on, and teams already knew what plays we were going to do and knew what formations and sets that O'Grady would be getting the ball. But I think if we can utilize these freshmen, even if it's just decoys to get one-on-one mismatches, right, I think O'Grady can have a special year.
Now, I totally agree with you. I think with the addition of Knox, PQ Jackson, Traylon Burks, Hudson Henry, Shamar Nash, those four guys alone will bring some added dimensions that Arkansas at the skill position hadn't had over the last 4 to possibly 6 years, or you can pretty much go back to the Jarius Wright era, Joe Adams, Greg, and Childs, those guys. Arkansas hadn't had this much offensive firepower. And, the thing I've said, and I've looked at the rosters at a lot of different places. We get the media guys each and every year. And I went through the rosters for coming back returnees. Arkansas, I'm going to go on record to say, will be one of the most underrated but more productive at the receiver spot this upcoming season. Then they'll get talked about. And when I say that, I know a lot of listeners, if you're not an Arkansas fan or if you chime in through a lot of different sources to catch our show, I know you may be scratching your head, but trust me on this. This receiving core from the tight end to the wide receivers is a lot better than what you think. And Demetrius, I'm of the belief you're going to see a lot of these guys get a chance to play on Sundays for the future going forward. But we're going to continue on and get this thing rolling. We're about to hop on the bus, and we want you to come with us. We're heading to Athens, between the hedges. It's on the hill with Pat Jenkins on KDSJ 479. Back in a bit.
Okay, give your opening comments on the game, and then we'll take your questions.
Well, excited about the tight nature of the game and the back and forth battle. I like it when both quarterbacks get to kind of compete and do 2 minute, and the guys get to play. So that was really good from a competitive standpoint. I thought I got to see the look in some guys' eyes that they were out there competing, playing hard. That part was good, and no major injuries, which is also good. So with that, I'll open it up.
Sure, you had like 83 pass attempts, 32 rushes. Is that kind of where you thought it'd go? You want to see more that day, not do what you
Yeah, well, it's catered around 2 minute situations, so we have last 4 minutes of both halves. You have to go 2 minute. Therefore, you're always going to have more passes in those situations. I thought I was a little worried about the weather conditions, being able to throw the ball and wet and throwing it. I thought it might get sloppy, but the weather helped out and cooperated towards the end and was able to throw the ball, especially there maybe the first half. It had pretty good conditions for a little bit, less wind. So.
You talk about all three quarterbacks and on that line. Did two young guys do a good job?
Did a nice job managing the game. I thought they Dwayne had a couple sloppy snaps, maybe a drop snap there. I thought Stetson did a good job. Stetson's played in that game before, so both those guys did a nice job of managing it. A lot of throwing situations, not a lot of defenses out there as far as number of volume of defense. I mean, we scaled back that package and scaled back a lot of the offense. A lot of the new things we're doing weren't in that package today, but
Welcome back. It's our Tuesday edition of On the Hill with Pat Jenkins Sports Talk Radio, coming to you here each and day from KDSJ 479, Monday through Friday from 1 to 2 p.m. And, we hopped on the bus, and guess where the bus stopped? It stopped in Athens, Georgia, between the hedges, and we caught up with a good buddy of the show, Jake Roos of UGA Sports. Jake, welcome back to OTH, my man. You there, Jake? Momentarily, we'll have him. We're momentarily trying to get a hold of Jake. We'll have him here in just a minute. It's Tuesday. It's partially how days go, but with the producers that we have and the producers that I have, we'll definitely get this thing taken care of here momentarily. You back on? Can you hear me now, Jake? You there, Jake? Can you hear me? We'll step away and be right back with Jake Roos of UGAsports.com. It's On the Hill with Pat Jenkins. Right back. Told you, when you got the best in the business, the best in the country, my guy Demetrius, I have no doubt in my mind, but we're going to get on and get back on the bus and get off the bus between the hedges. Jake, welcome to On the Hill, my man.
Hey, thank you for having me as always, Pat.
Let's get off into it. Spring ball's just concluded throughout the SEC. And the two standards when you talk about SEC football now happens to be in Tuscaloosa and Athens. Talk about, how's Kirby feeling going into year 4 of his program in the SEC?
I think that there's a lot for Kirby to feel confident about. I think they've got some good depth at key positions. The secondary is obviously a place that they've built up, as is the offensive line. And then I think the linebacking core, both inside and outside, is very strong for the Bulldogs right now. So, there's a lot of things for them to feel confident about. I know that we still have some concerns about finding some consistency on the D-line and at the wide receiver position as well as tight end. But overall, I think that they feel good about the experience level of this team, the talent level of this team, and I feel like the expectation is that they should take the East again.
When you look at the talent level, in your opinion, Jake, what will be the team's strength going into the 2019 season?
I think it's going to be in the secondary. I really do. And I don't know that I would have chosen that at the beginning of the spring, but I think that they've just had such great battles back there, and they've got so many guys with so much experience. Having a guy like a J.R. Reed and Richard LeCount who have multiple starts under their belt. And then you got two guys vying for the corner spot in Tyson Campbell and Eric Stokes who have played extensively and have tons of game experience. So you supplement that with a really highly rated defensive back like Tyreek Stevenson, and then you bring in a well thought of JUCO player in DJ Daniel, and I think that it becomes a very intriguing set of players back there. I think that they've got a number of guys who can make plays, cover plenty of the field and a lot of speed as well. So overall, I think that the secondary for Georgia this year should pick up right where they left off after DeAndre Baker's source campaign.
Quarterback has been a position that you guys have had a lot of success at. Jake Fromm takes over, and it just seemed like from the moment he stepped in at quarterback, this team just got settled in an offensive rhythm and just took off. And as a result, last 2 years he's led them to the SEC championship game. Talk about that position, and if you're Kirby Smart, how excited are you for Jake going into his junior campaign?
Oh, you got to be excited about it. I mean, the kid's been a model of consistency for you, and I've said since the beginning of his career, it was not a situation where Jake Fromm's going to lose you games, and I don't think he's done that to Georgia. I think that he puts his team on the back, makes the plays when he gets called on, and runs this offense very efficiently. I think that that's a big strength of his. So, I think that there's a lot to be excited about when it comes to Georgia's quarterback situation. You want to be obviously deep at the 2 spot and know who's going to fulfill that role. I think it's going to be Stetson Bennett. He played well in the spring game. But, a guy like DeJuan Mathis came on and really showed some nice things as well. Made some big plays with his legs and obviously can really uncork a deep ball. So I'm looking forward to seeing how that battle goes. But there's no question that this is Jake Fromm's team, and I think Kirby Smart wouldn't trust it with anybody else.
You guys in the media get a chance to also see a position of depth as more guys continue to move on at the running back spot. Elijah Holyfield decides to, put his name in the NFL draft that's coming up here in a few days. But Andre Swift, the young man that I thought, had always been possibly one of the top 2 running backs coming out of high school, and he did nothing to discredit that last season. Talk about that position and, who's going to be number 2 and 3 guys there at between the hedges for Kirby, just to give DeAndre just a little breather.
Yeah, I think that it's an intriguing position because DeAndre's dealt with some injuries to this point, but has been super effective when he's been healthy. That 2 spot I think is going to be a big challenge and one that's pretty wide open right now. I think Brian Harrion, just because of his experience and what he can do receiving the ball out of the backfield, probably has an inside track there. But, Zamir White coming back from a couple big knee injuries, how will he factor into this? He wasn't taking contact this spring. And then a guy like James Cook, obviously, put some time in the weight room, is a versatile weapon as well. And then you got a guy coming into June, Kenny McIntosh, who I think a lot of people might be overlooking, a really good body on him. It's going to be interesting to see how they use that depth at the running back spot because they've got plenty.
Talking with Jake Roos of UGAsports.com, covers all of Dog Talk. Anything come out of Athens. The 2019 season may be the most competitive that I've had the privilege to cover over the last 5 to 6 years. Where are you at with this 2019 campaign, in your opinion?
Yeah, I think that this has got to be the time when you're going to really see, what Kirby and these hires he's made are all about, because these are essentially his players. I mean, there are a couple of guys still left from the old regime, but for the most part, most of those guys who are occupying spots are guys that they handpicked and went out and chose. And, I think that it's going to be a real telltale look into the future for the Bulldogs as to what the realistic expectations could be. I think that they've done great up until this point. Obviously, have had a lot of success under Kirby Smart, but there's also a need to get over the hump, and I think that this has got to be a year where they're looking to do that. I think that they feel that they've got a chance and got the talent to do so, and as well they should. You've got a lot of experience on this team. potentially two guys that'll test the NFL at your tackle position. Jake Fromm coming back. I think that there's a lot for them to look forward to, and should be one of the best teams, I think, of the Kirby Smart era.
When you think about the SEC, it always goes by the moniker. It just means more. You know, with every Rapid fan base, you know, we always talk about the returners, but you know, you can't help but lean and say, who are going to be some of the surprise guys that maybe fans haven't known about that will emerge once this campaign starts. Give me one guy offensively and one guy on the defensive side of the football there in Athens that maybe fans are probably going to get a little more ink on once the Saturdays are concluded.
You know, I think that a guy that gets overlooked a lot just because he's a guy who gets out there and mixes it up and just does whatever is asked of him is Charlie Warner. And I think that we're going to need some production from the tight end spot. And I think that Warner is a guy who can get in there and do it all. He's got great hands, great feet, great size. And it's just a prototypical tight end. So I look for Charlie to make big strides this year. And the other guy is Eric Stokes. I know that he played a lot toward the end of last year, but he was the guy coming out of high school, a 3-star. You know, we had concerns whether or not he was going to be able to develop to the level that they need him to. He looks to me to be primed for a big year. I think that he had a great spring game as well, and a guy who people should get to know right now, because I think that he's going to be an SEC quarterback who's going to make a lot of noise this year.
Well, Jake, as always, I know you guys, you do a great job. And for those that don't get a chance to follow Jake, tell them how they can catch up on all your articles.
Yeah, you can join us over at UGAsports.com. We got tons of free stuff as well as some premium articles as well. Lots of recruiting news. That's kind of my specialty. And if you want to, you can also follow me on Twitter at Roost Recruiting. That's REUSE Recruiting.
All right, my man. We'll talk soon. And as always, thanks for taking time out here on OTH, my man.
I appreciate you, Pat. Thanks a bunch, buddy.
That was Jake Roos of UGAsports.com, and I want to get over here and get my opinion from my producer. But we're going to step away, take a quick break. We're going to get on the bus and head down to Columbia, South Carolina, and find out what Coach Muschamp has got going on with those Gamecocks. It's On the Hill with Pat Jenkins on KDSJ 479. Back in a moment. Hey everyone, it's Pat Jenkins here of OTH. That's right, On the Hill with Pat Jenkins, Sports Talk Radio. We come to you each and every day here, Monday through Friday, from 1 to 2 on KDSJ 479. Be sure and tune in if you want to hear about SEC and the Arkansas Razorbacks. It's OTH. Holla.
That we had over 200 lettermen register for the alumni flag football game, which is great to see those guys enjoying each other, and great to have them back on campus tonight. We've at 6 o'clock at the volleyball center. DJ Swearinger was having his celebrity basketball game to benefit the Boys and Girls Clubs of the Midlands, which is a great cause, and appreciate his support, and to see all those guys back as well, the younger guys that are still playing the National Football League. So a good day today. I thought we culminated a really good spring from a standpoint of accomplishments of what we felt like we needed. We've got a deeper team than we've had, more competitive depth, especially on both lines of scrimmage, which at the end of the day, when you got to come to practice every day and you've got to compete and strain against a good player all the time, creates consistency in your performance, and that's what good programs have, and that's where we're headed. But I thought we accomplished some good things today. I originally was going to have the quarterbacks be live, but we did that the last 2 Saturdays. And today with our second offensive line, sometime on the edges, we were overmatched in our last Thursday practice. So I didn't feel like putting those guys under that much duress. But I did extend some plays to let them make decisions down the field and put those those guys in situations. Because it's all about decision making. And that was a huge evaluation for us today, especially with those young quarterbacks. You see Jay Yerkes playing multiple spots for us. Jay's a really good athlete. The guy's one of the faster guys on our football team. He competes, he plays hard, so he's going to play. He's still in the quarterback room, but he's going to play some receiver and special teams, as you saw him do that again today. But a guy that's a really good athlete is going to really help our team. A.J. Turner's primary position next year will be running back. but he will play corner. He is a guy that is bright enough to be able to go and handle that and do that. He's proved that to us this spring. We've had him in multiple practices playing on both sides of the ball, and I think he's done a really good job. But, I told our football team it's about leave no doubt right now. Leave no doubt about your commitment to our team and to having a good team, and then really, in terms of doing the things you've got to do individually.
Welcome back, welcome back, welcome back. It's our Tuesday edition of On the Hill Sports Talk Radio here on KDSJ 479. But real quick, before we get on to our next guest and where the bus stopped, we want to give a shout out to our sponsors, Lindsay & Associates, with an office location in Fayetteville and office location also too in Rogers, the Baymont Hotel, located at 735 South Shiloh Drive. Locomotion, located just below the Northwest Arkansas Mall, and our newest sponsor, Corey Beck's Custom Painting. And now, we've stopped the bus, and it stopped in South Carolina, where we caught up with our good buddy of Spurs and Feathers, Will Gunner. Will, welcome back to OTH, my brother.
Good to hear from you, man. Hope you're having a good spring out that way.
Absolutely. Spring ball is wrapping up across the SEC, and, it just means more. So we thought we'd get with you all and find out, how's Coach Muschamp feeling about, how they come out of spring, and what's the forecast, in your opinion, heading into fall camp?
Well, I think they really, really like where they came out of spring ball. I mean, there's a lot of depth returning. The general feeling is the overall talent has been upgraded.
Right.
Across the board from Steve Spurrier's last year. Now, does that mean it's ready to compete with Georgia and Alabama and Texas A&M that's on the schedule this year? That remains to be seen. But I think that the program, by and large, is moving in the right direction. You look at the quarterback room, and it's something that they're very excited about with a senior in Jake Bentley, with a guy, a four-star player, and Decarrion Joyner, who's redshirted, and now kind of the elite prospect, and Ryan Kolinsky being on campus. You look at the defensive line, and what John Scott Jr. stepped into is it's a much improved area. The secondary has more depth. There's still some deficiencies. They still lack some certain playmakers at wide receiver and running back, but this will be one of Will Muschamp's better. Well, this will be the best team he's had at South Carolina. The question will be with that schedule. Are they able to reflect that on the record?
When you look at this team, you mentioned a lot of maturity, a lot of experience, but in your opinion, Will, when you walk on that field in August, if you're Will Muschamp and staff, what position will you feel will be the position of strength for this team going forward in 2019?
Well, I think, you're going to start with defensive line. It's going to be much improved. Javon Kinlaw is a guy that at times has flashed and has done some really good things. I think adding five-star Zach Pickens, one of the top 10 players in the nation, who's in for spring ball, to that rotation. Big kid, 6'5", 290 pounds. Is going to be good. You have some experienced players that have been contributors. I wouldn't label them stars by any stretch of the imagination, but guys that will be seniors that have contributed over the last 4 years. And then you got a guy like DJ Wanham, who was never really healthy last year and should be healthy at the rush end position. And then again, not just Zach Pickens, but a few other positions as well. Joseph Anderson, a few other players. Joseph Anderson is a guy they're very excited about. So there's a lot of guys, I think, at that position. Again, Will Muschamp transforming the defensive line from something that even last year wasn't heavy enough. Really wasn't some of the run-heavy teams, but transforming them, that'll be something that I think a lot of people talk about early on.
Talking with Will Gunner of Spurs and Feathers, covers the South Carolina Gamecocks for us here on OTH, for those that have just tuned in. Well, I want to talk about Coach John Scott, former Arkansas defensive line coach, moved over to the South Carolina staff. How has that transition been with Coach Tavares Robinson, the D-line, the defensive coordinator, and the other staff members? How's the transition been? And, what have you seen when you talk to the players? What's their general take of, having a coach like Coach Scott come in and maybe change up a few things?
Well, I think by and large, he's been just a different voice. Lance Thompson. Anytime you make a change for the good or bad, the spring, obviously, a different voice is always positive. And how does it translate on the field when South Carolina opens up against North Carolina on August 31st? I will say this: John Scott Jr. walked into a situation that I think a lot of coaches would have liked to walk into. I think that he's gonna probably look like a very good coach this year. But I do think South Carolina's defensive line is more talented than they were last year. So there's going to be a lot of people who maybe say, well, look at him taking guys and there's an improvement. But some of that's because you didn't have DJ Wanham last year. You added some more talented players in. Guys get a year older, become a little bit more comfortable with the system. And that's the other thing about it was you were asking the Will Muschamp type spring practice. You don't get a lot of information, and you get one message. You're not going to get you're going to get a pretty standard message from everybody. And so there's a lot of positive things about John Scott Jr. But look, the proof will be in the pudding when the team takes the field this year. You look at that schedule and you look at that defensive line, and they're going to have to perform, certainly. And so we'll learn a lot in football season.
A lot of, in my opinion, parity started to happen last year. You could tell by just some of how close the division races were. In my opinion, 2019 will be probably the most competitive that I've had the privilege of covering over the last 6 to 7 years. In your opinion, how's the conference shaping up heading into 2019?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure. There's going to be Alabama, and then there's going to be Georgia, and then there's going to be everybody else. I think we're still in that mold. Where is Texas A&M in year number 2 under Jimbo Fisher?
Right.
Where do they make the strides? Does Kellen Mond improve? What are some of their playmakers going to do, and how much does that recruiting class from this past year making an immediate impact? Are you willing to buy in to Ed Orgeron and LSU as a guy who really gets that program back? I mean, they've been fine. There's nothing wrong with LSU, but at the same time, LSU is a program that expects to compete for national championships, and quite frankly, I don't think they were at that level last year. I think they were a good team that played well at times, but you saw them get beat by Florida. Obviously, they weren't competitive against Alabama.
Right.
Go to Auburn. Auburn's going to have to find a new quarterback. Gus Malzahn's on the hot seat. That's a program right now that, quite frankly, is always playing catch up to Alabama. And there are times where they do catch them and they win 10 or 11 games. There's times they go 6-6 or 4-8. Right. There's a lot of pressure down there on the plain. So that's the West. You look at the East. I'm probably in the minority on this. I don't think Florida is as good as people are making them out to be. I think Florida benefited from a soft schedule last year. They caught some massive breaks. South Carolina's up on them 31-14 with, I think, 20 minutes to go, about 19 minutes to go. And, that game, I put more on Will Muschamp. That's the Will Muschamp everybody knew at Florida. And, I mean, it was a pathetic performance. South Carolina just, they let it go without saying some 4-letter words and knocking you off air. They did, it's perform. And it's, Florida didn't do anything in that game where you're like, well, okay, Florida just outplayed them 20 minutes. South Carolina shot themselves in the foot. And, so I'm not buying Florida. They lost a lot of talent on that defense the last 2 years, and I still am not sure that they've got playmakers on offense that just scare you. And so, you look throughout the conference, Tennessee's in year 2 with Jeremy Pruitt. That's still a rebuild. I don't know where this conference is at right now. I think there's a lot of teams. I do think Florida can be good. I like Dan Mullen as a coach. I certainly think Texas A&M could be really good. We all know LSU's talented. Auburn's recruited really well. How are they going to actually play? How will this work out with those coaching staffs?
Last question, Will, before I let you go, and I'll ask this of each and every individual on the Caravan. But if there's one offensive and one defensive player, that people may not know about in the Gamecock Nation that you might want to get ready to hear about once the games conclude on Saturdays, who would those two young men be?
Well, I think offensively, I don't know if I'm giving a guy that people don't know about, but Shi Smith is that guy. He's a wide receiver. He's set to take over the Deebo Samuel type role. He's more of a game breaker, a speed guy. I think a lot of people think he's one of the top 3 fastest guys on the ball team. He's a guy that maybe with Deebo Samuel leading, you're going to see get more touches, get more opportunities. Obviously, Brian Edwards is still there. Or Trey Smith, who had a dislocated kneecap last year and missed pretty much the majority of the season, will be back. And there's some other good wide receivers. But I think Shi Smith is the guy offensively that could give South Carolina a game breaker. Defensively, I don't know if you consider J.C. Horn a guy that people aren't aware of. He was freshman All-SEC. He's obviously the son of Joe Horn. He's your prototypical defensive back that you want in the NFL. He's 6'1", he's 180. He was really good last year. He'll be at South Carolina 2 more years, and then he'll go to the NFL. He's going to continue that lineage of South Carolina putting DBs in the NFL. So I don't know if you count him. If not, there's another guy on the other side. I think it's intriguing. He's a defensive back. He's 6'4". Israel Mkwamu is his name. He was originally committed to Florida State under Jimbo Fisher. He's from South Carolina. When Fisher went A&M, he decommitted. He played some last year. They love his athleticism. He made a play in the spring game that I think it was Holinsky was trying to throw over top of him, and he was getting back into coverage, and just you can't teach 6'4", and it was probably a really good pass. And Mkwamu, who's got length, just he's backpedaling. He kind of jumps up. There's a lot of defensive backs that simply they're really good and can't make that play. And so that might be another guy to keep an eye on.
All right, as always, my man, love having you on. We'll talk in a couple of weeks, and I know we'll get together here in a couple of months down at the SEC get-together, where they always say it just means more. But thanks for taking time out on the hill, Will.
Always ready to talk to you. Take care.
All right, bud. That was Will Gunner of Spurs and Feathers giving us the South Carolina Gamecocks spring football preview, and I want to, talk about it a little bit. When you discuss the Georgia Bulldogs in South Carolina, and you hear a lot of what Coach Smart said during his press conference, also Coach Muschamp, and then Jake Bruce of UGA Sports and Will Muschamp of Spurs and Feathers. You get the sense that this is going to be a very wide open SEC season outside of, and I think, the top 4 teams in the SEC will be Alabama, Georgia, Texas A&M, and LSU. I just think talent-wise, when you put it on paper, those guys have recruited at an elite level. And if they can just navigate through their schedule, catch a few breaks here or there, then you got to think those 4 will be up for a lot of the college football playoff talk. I, for one, think LSU, when you look at their roster, could be the most talented roster in the SEC outside of finding a quarterback. I don't know why it is that each and every year Coach Orgeron and that staff don't have a quarterback, but they got one coming in 2020. Sensation. I believe he's an unnormal All-American, TJ Finley, a big 6'6", 6'7" guy that people around the SEC and around the country will hear a lot about in the coming years. And then you look at Arkansas, you look at Auburn, you look at Mississippi State, you look at Mississippi, Vanderbilt, Kentucky. All these programs, I feel, Missouri, all these programs are on the uptick, I should say. They've hired some pretty outstanding coaches, some outstanding recruiters are starting to spread throughout the conference. You look down at Vanderbilt, and they go down to Auburn, and still Tim Horton, one of the elite recruiters for many, many years in the SEC. He moves on to Vanderbilt to coach their running backs, and as evidence, I can start seeing some of the kids be mentioned that, the kids that will be mentioned with Auburn are starting to talk about Vanderbilt, and that's a direct correlation to, just that move. But that's what it boils down to in the SEC. It's relationships. Then you have to win once you build these relationships, because when you get the Jimmys and the Joes, you better know the X's and the O's.